Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, July 14th, 2021. We're back with Tetra Biopharma TBPMF over the counter, Dr. Guy Chamerlan. Guy, welcome back.
Yes, hi Jack, glad to be back.
Guy, you got a lot of exciting news. We're going to get into everything in just a moment. For anybody that's brand new to a program, our goal is to bring you those stocks which have a 10x to 100x upside potential. That's what we call it, the next super stock live stream. And we've had a whole bunch of them in the past 18 months. 7 or 8, I think it might be 8 stocks already that are up between 10x and 50x. And looks like Tetra is on the way to at least being a 10 bagger. You're up already about, well, at the peak, you're up about 3x, and it's come back a little bit. Now we're going to see what the path is to getting to that 10x or higher. We've had, Guy, some of your investors that have been on our program have, they've had, saying that your stock could be that literally could be that 100 bagger. So we're going to find out, get an update, and we'll open it up for questions with the audience. And again, the highlight of this is the audience questions. So guys, please,
I hope they brought their cell phone on vacation. Last session we had together, I told them to bring their cell phone on vacation so they wouldn't miss your show.
Yeah, so exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure half the audience, especially all the Canadians, are watching this on their phone by the pool or at the lake. By the cottage. So so make sure to everybody ask your questions and decide for yourself if Tetra is going to be the next 10 bagger. So Guy had very significant news this week with the QuickSleep. I keep getting these names. The Reborn trial. The Reborn trial. It's funny. We were just talking before about the different names. Great news with the Reborn trial. I think which we kind of want to get into. It looks like you're accelerating the trial, right?
Yeah.
And this is the opioid. This is the opioid alternative trial.
Yeah. So Reborn is I guess basically a blockbuster trial in the sense that it's the first time a company goes head to head against an immediate release opioid, basically, with a cannabis derived drug. I mean, this is really significant when you consider what's going on with the opioid crisis, with the states going after various companies with settlements. But like our internally we say, and that's nice that you get a settlement in court, but what's there for patients? What do you have to offer them? Another slow acting or fast relief opioid? There's nothing. So for us, go ahead.
So essentially, so Tetra is going basically head to head against oral opioids like Oxy, all that stuff.
Oxycodone, but the immediate release, the ones that doctors give to you claiming it's going to be fast acting. We'll get rid of your pain fast. The total global opioid market is a $32 billion market. The immediate release segment is half of it. It's about $16 billion. I mean, this is not insignificant, despite the appetite for finding alternatives. When you see that there's still they expect by 2027 to have a $32 billion global opioid market. There's really not much energy going, in my opinion, towards changing this growth trend. It still has a growth of about 2.5%, which is significant. But when it put yourselves in the patient's shoes, I mean, there still is no alternative. So what we're developing is that. But one of the things we want, I don't want to claim simply against fast acting or fast relief morphine. I want the whole class. I want to show the world that when you take QuickSleep, you're going to get a faster relief than all of that class of immediate release opioid. So what I need to do, I need to be able to determine my sample size for my pivotal trial. The FDA is going to want me to include at least 3 drugs, which we're doing, and then they're going to say, okay, you'll need so many patients, and the statistician has to show that. But if I just did, say, the immediate release morphine, I'd have only data on 1. So I'd have to gamble what my patient size would have to be to get it, a statistically powered pivotal trial. The other thing, too, you have to look at, and this is more as a shareholder, if a company is going to accelerate the enrollment of a trial, which is basically the outcome of what's happening, That means I'm going to burn my money faster, which means I'm going to get to the end of this trial faster. So if my confidence was low, or I was seeing, say, negative indicators, I wouldn't do this. I'd want to do the opposite. I'd want to delay my progression, because obviously, I'd want to go back to the market and raise money before having a negative. So you're not going to do anything like we did if there are negative signals.
Okay, so that's a key point here. So I mean, again, nobody accelerates a trial unless there's already some good data.
Yeah, good indicators, correct.
So apparently, okay. So you started when? You started about a month ago, roughly, with the patient.
First patient was basically enrolled. Yeah, first week of June.
Okay. So looks like things are going. They're going well enough that you're expanding to go against all the whole class of opioids. It's a $32 billion market opportunity, which is very compelling. So basically, this would be the only cannabinoid-based drug with pain relief.
Correct.
Okay.
For the relief, and basically showing speed of relief. Orally, you're not going to get the speed. So an oral cannabinoid, for example, is not going to get the fast release that we're going to see. I mean, by inhalation, the relief comes, the euphoria comes within minutes, and that's what a patient is going to experience. So the pain, say, was at 100 degrees before. Now, when you're going to take our drug, we're going to drop it, because we're going to change your perception of your pain. So you're living with pain, you're suffering. I'm going to change that. I'm not really going to, do what the opioid does. I'm really going to change how your body perceives the pain. So now it hurts you less. So that is really going to drag down the number of opioids you're going to need to get, the long-term relief. And that's really key. We see this drug as really being able to be used, with every single analgesic, because we're going to change pain perception. And that is key. And if you think about it, if you go back to the literature and you look at, cancer patients would come into, some of the surveys that they were doing with medical cannabis, and they had, they wanted to die. They'd just been diagnosed with a terminal disease, no longer any chemotherapy or radiotherapy options for their cancer. They get on to inhaled medical cannabis, and all of a sudden they wanted to live because their perception of their suffering changed. And that's what the euphoria does to you. And that's where I find that society has underestimated the potential of an inhaled cannabinoid drug. It's basically what centuries of people have been using cannabis for relieving their suffering. And that's key. Quality of life, how you live your last moments in a terminal cancer, that's essential. You can go back home, spend time with your family, solve what you have to, maybe even enjoy a last vacation or do something you've always wanted to do with a quality of life. And that's what we're doing with our trials.
Okay, but essentially, this is going to be it's going to go beyond just the terminal cancer. You're going to essentially you're going to be going after the whole pain relief market, right?
Well, think about it. We were talking about before the show. Why do we name trials? Reborn, Plenitude, and that's because physicians remember clinical data by trial names. So we'll hear a physician talk about the GATE trial that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Here will be the Reborn trial. But what they're going to remember, Reborn proved that QuickSleep provided fast relief and a change of perception of pain. And that's it. They don't need to remember anything else. Then it's just take out your prescription pad and prescribe. And that's it. And that's key, because they're going to forget it was maybe a cancer patient, and now they'll do it to somebody with basically a back pain or something.
Okay. Right. So so that makes sense. The name makes sense. QuickSleep, quick relief. Okay, and then they expand. Yeah. So this incredible opportunity. And again, basically, so I think the main thing that
being reborn once you get on QuickSleep
and reborn,
you regain your life that you had lost because of basically your suffering.
Okay, so we're gonna get into a couple of questions here. I think the main thing that probably everybody wants to know is, okay, so assuming this trial goes well, what's the path to getting to commercialization? Assuming we're getting some progress, how far are we from generating revenues with this?
For us, basically our goal is to finish at least, not from an interim data, because obviously when we did the amendment, we also included a statistical analysis at the, how could I say, at an interim point on Reborn for internal decisions. But obviously our goal is to have finished at least the majority of the patients this year. That's our target. And then obviously next year, starting the pivotal trial to be able to put us in a position to file the new drug application in early 2023. That's our goal. If I get my interim with positive data, you can imagine that, you know, my regulatory suitcase, we're off talking to the regulators to say, see my result. Now let's talk seriously about taking this to the market. And that's the business we're in.
Okay, so I think from the investor's perspective, the way to kind of look at this is okay. So you know the market opportunity is 30 billion plus 32 billion. You're saying for oral as a quick fast acting pain relief, right? $32 billion market opportunity. You're roughly 18 months, 24 months out maybe before assuming everything goes well before commercialization. Obviously, as the clinical trials progress, as it becomes more and more de-risked, the valuation should increase, because right now I mean the market cap is really nothing. I mean, what typically companies that are going after such significant market opportunities where they're like one of maybe the only product of its kind, what would be the typical valuation of a company like that in the pharma space? Are we talking about north of $1 billion?
You'd be talking about $1 billion company. I mean, that's
right.
Basically what just QuickSleep represents. Especially we have patents, so it's not a, how could I say, a not patented drug. We have composition of matter as well, patents. I know a lot of people were, they saw that some of the examiners, I saw that in social media where people are questioning, okay, what does it mean when an examiner challenges, say, some of the claims? Well, that's normal. That's, it's in everything we do in drug development. I mean, the FDA challenges our endpoints. It's up to us to answer them and show them how novel our claims are and our research. But it's also negotiation. The examiner of a patent knows very well that, Tetra's trying to get, let's say, as wide coverage as possible of its claims, and their job is to narrow it down as much. So it's, you give some and they give some, and that's the way all patents are done. It's a normal process. So nothing to date is, how could I say, there's no negative signals on any of our patents for inhalation. So we're confident we'll get our patent granted, and then people will be infringing our patents. And that's what a pharma wants. A pharma wants to see that solid IP with solid clinical data and obviously a market. But I'll comment one thing. Tetra's looking at pain relief through changing the perception of suffering. But there's a lot more than pain that brings suffering to patients, like those cancer patients that I told you that, if you're dying of cancer because you see no alternative in terms of chemotherapy, no therapy, or even radiotherapy, well, that's not pain. That's kind of like depression. So the potential of a drug like QuickSleep goes beyond just pain. So the market size is actually pretty large.
Okay, so that's So that's an interesting. It's not just the pain; it really covers the whole kind of spectrum.
The whole population in our interest, obviously, is cancer patients, but there are many other diseases out there that physicians may want to try QuickSleep and see how it helps their patient. Because in the end, that's what the physician's job is doing, being sure there's a safe drug with proven efficacy, but then they'll try it off-label because we understand the mechanism and we can explain it.
Okay, so the off-label. So once the drug is approved, the off-label possibilities are massive. I mean, you could be going after I don't know, 50 billion market opportunities more.
Yeah, easily. I mean, look at the number of people who suffer in our society. It's tremendous. It is very tremendous, and we give them drugs that have so massive side effects, and it changes how they function in a day. And I remember back in 2018 when we were talking with the regulators about, before we had, shown them our phase 1 clinical data of QuickSleep, one of the issues they were saying, Guy, before you go forward into patients, you're going to have to show us that you don't affect the functionality of the patient in their day. Of course, you're sitting back there going like, okay, so opioids don't negatively affect them. SSRIs, antidepressants don't negatively affect them. You don't say a word, obviously, but ultimately that's what I had to show them, that My patients are going to be able to function. But if you're a patient, that's what you want. I want to take something to relieve my suffering, but I also want to be able to take care of my family, go do my shopping, go do whatever I do. And you can't do it if you're, kind of like on very strong opioids. You really can't function. Same thing, many people on antidepressants don't sleep at night. They have a lot of serious side effects. So if I don't have that, the profile of my drug is going to make it that patients will want it. And with an actual drug approval, physicians will feel comfortable prescribing it because it's safe and with a recognized drug quality that nobody else will have.
Okay, so there's actually so there's a couple of things actually which the value drivers for this drug is obviously fast acting pain relief. You don't have the addiction issues and the functionality, which I didn't think about, but the functionality is the key thing. I mean, in other words, if somebody's taking opioids for pain relief, they really can't function.
No.
I mean, they can't really go about their day to day.
Have you ever taken some of those opioids for any pain? I mean, I couldn't be talking to you today. I wouldn't be able to do my job in regulatory affairs. You're basically numb. I mean, it's unbelievable, the negative effect. Our society doesn't really care because they'll put you on, unemployment insurance or, some medical insurance, but you become, in my opinion, non-functional. But at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, even 60, you still want to have a functional life. And your brain is part of it. You don't want to be numbed by a drug. And QuickSleep is not going to have that negative part. And we're talking about, like I said, analgesics, but look at the SSRIs. The SSRIs have I'd say a traumatic effect on many patients. Many patients stop their medication because they don't tolerate those drugs.
Okay, so basically, so right now the market cap is roughly 100 million US approximately. As the company goes, as it gets closer to that commercialization, I mean, do you think we could be trading at 2 billion, 2.5 billion valuation, which is kind of in line with what
just with QuickSleep? Easily.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, easily.
I mean, based on pure comparisons.
Yeah, very, very easily.
So basically, it would be a 20x from here over the next, let's say, I mean, it could happen fast, but really 18 months. So I see that as one of the real catalysts here. So and you have, there's multiple catalysts here, which is what we like. This is why you're part of this. Because, one of the things we like with the next super stock program is, companies which have those multiple catalysts, they're at the inflection point, big market opportunities, no question. You're already past the inflection point. I mean, the train has left the station. So now we're hitting on the catalyst. Before we get on to the ARDS and all the other stuff, let me just get to a couple more. Let me just get to some audience questions here.
Sure.
On the current stuff. Okay, so Ethan asking, when do we anticipate trial data being released to the public?
Well, typically trial data itself being released, it's after the regulators have seen it. We can't go out and say something without the regulators having seen it because they'll be upset. It'd be kind of like, one of your friends telling something you did to your parents and, they're waiting for you at home kind of saying, okay, well, you didn't tell me about this type of thing. So you kind of clear that with them. Also, during a trial, we also don't reveal data because the FDA, for example, could slap us. They could stop the trial and they say, well, you're using this to try and encourage patients to come in to take your drug that's more effective, according to you, which we haven't seen the data. So you got to be very, very careful. Even the ethics review boards could also stop our trial and say, you guys are using news releases to encourage patients to come and use an unproven drug, basically. So we're very cautious. Most pharmas are. You can't do that. Most are silent. So when we get events like we did this time, amending the protocol, that's a great time to show your color and show how confident you are on a drug and on a trial. But that's beyond, I can't go beyond that.
Okay. Question: how many patients is Tetra? Are you anticipating putting through the phase 2 trials?
Okay. Well, to date, we have multiple patients, obviously, on the drug. Some have finished their, QuickSleep arm already. We have others, obviously, before the amendment. We had others in screening, so that's going very, very well. And obviously explaining exactly how many patients are enrolled, that's not something that is in the public domain, so that we do not answer. That also would tell a pharma how fast we're moving and how fast we're going to get there, so we don't reveal those sorts of things. But yeah, that's in terms of the enrollment, that's as much as I can say.
Okay. Interesting question. Okay, so the right, the in the U.S. you have the kind of that right to try, right? So does that expand the number of people that can actually start using?
No, actually, a phase 2 has no implications on a right to try. You can do a right to try act as soon as you finish the phase 1. So we finished the phase 1 in 2017. So
okay.
Patients have been eligible for QuickSleep under the right to try since, I'd say, at least 2018.
Okay, so pretty much anybody can use QuickSleep right now.
Yeah, they can make a request to a company, and then they have to find a physician that's willing to prescribe it. But yes, the Right to Try Act in the United States, I don't know if any other jurisdictions do that. Canada has a different approach. The physician first has to go to Health Canada, but in the United States, if I understand correctly, the right to try, the patient approaches the company and then finds a physician. So it's a very, very different process. Much more in favor of patients than, say, here in Canada.
Okay. Okay. Then you have the Reduvo. Oh, we're gonna go get into the Reduvo in just a minute. I mean, the big thing with Reduvo is that this is the for the nausea relief, right? For cancer. This is the drug
for nausea and basically weight gain in HIV patients.
Okay. So let's get into that. So Reduvo is going to go on the market in Canada in the third quarter. So you're actually going to start generating revenues with Reduvo.
As soon as it gets approved, yeah, we begin selling. Obviously, we're going to have activities in, let's say, the near future, where we'll begin preparing what we call the launch. So that's normal in activities. At that point, when we begin to prepare that, obviously, as a public company, we'll have to announce, kind of our plans to the market. So at one point, the market will hear us coming out and saying, here's our plan for the commercialization of Reduvo. That's pretty standard. For me, Reduvo, and I think most people in capital markets would share my opinion. Some would probably have even a stronger positive opinion than mine. But for a public company that's a biotech, getting your first drug approval is a key milestone, because it shows the market that you can deliver a prescription drug to the market. Because doing the science is one thing, doing the manufacturing is another, but the investor doesn't see the boxes being checked because they can't come in the company, but the regulator does. So when you get that first drug approval, the company kind of gets a rubber stamp saying you passed. You passed the safety, you passed the quality, and you passed the efficacy. Now you can sell. So that's big confidence to a potential investor. So the whole is waiting for what happens with Reduvo.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a massive validation. So I think that's actually that's going to be one of the catalysts that's really going to really impact the stock price as we get closer to that commercialization date, which is now we're already in August almost, right? So we're talking about basically 3-4 months.
Oh yeah. And to date, we've had no negative signals from the regulator. We don't expect any, because like I said, our whole cannabis regulations are based on the efficacy of dronabinol. So I can't see them coming up with a negative question when you built your whole, I'm going to say, regulatory structure of medical cannabis off of dronabinol.
Okay, so we're about 3 to 4 months away, but the market in Canada for that drug is what? It's not that big. But you have a lot of label
80 billion market potential, 80 million potential market.
80 million. So it's not huge. I mean, it's significant.
It's not huge, but it's also an opportunity for us. Look at what we're doing with QuickSleep. The whole efficacy of QuickSleep is, make it simple for the audience, is the efficacy of the euphoria of THC. Well, you're going to get that from Reduvo. It's a THC drug as well. So I'm going to be able to get in front of physicians, and I am going to talk to them about my QuickSleep studies, because if I'm going to pay a representative to go to a physician and pitch Reduvo, he also is going to want to know what I do for a living as a company. So I'll say, yes, we're developing this, and he's going to be very interested hearing about, he or she actually, be very interested in hearing about my Reborn trial.
You're doing a lot of groundwork. Basically, you're laying the ground for.
It allows us to exactly be kind of laying the groundwork for eventually when we come with QuickSleep, the market's going to be ready for it. And you have to do the transition. And they're also going to, they're going to see what we're doing against opioids. So they're going to be maybe tempted to try Reduvo against opioids, just like we're doing with QuickSleep.
This is what I want to ask. Okay, so Reduvo. So in terms of off-label use, what's in reality? I don't know so what exactly would be the difference between Reduvo and QuickSleep? And there's like somebody
speed of delivery. Reduvo is
how much of a difference?
Reduvo will have its peak around 1 to 2 hours, depending on your oral absorption, whereas QuickSleep is 5 minutes. So very different.
Okay.
You won't be able to use it the same way, but in pain management, you can certainly start to use it appropriately. And we're seeing more and more, as when we announce the Reduvo, for example, some physicians call us and ask questions when you're getting your DIP, because the majority of physicians don't want to prescribe. Well, they don't really prescribe medical cannabis, but they don't want to recommend it. They're concerned because, how can I say, the drug doesn't have that rubber stamp, and they're legally liable if you give something to a patient or recommend it to them if it harms them. So you don't know the quality, and you don't know the safety of the actual brand. Whereas when you get the rubber stamp of a DIN, you're comfortable. But we're seeing these physicians, they tell you they have seen patients on opioids that have taken medical cannabis, and they are seeing improvements in their patients. So we're actually seeing an opening of those physicians kind of be very, very interested in getting QuickSleep, and they'll take Reduvo before, because Reduvo will have a DIN.
Okay, so Reduvo, in terms of the level of pain relief, is it after, let's say Reduvo after 2 hours or whatever, is it the same level? Does it deliver the same level of pain relief as QuickSleep at peak?
At peak, it'll be very different, because the peak is going to be more of a potato-shaped curve, whereas it spikes. So QuickSleep is like a spike. It comes really up fast to your brain, gives you the euphoria very rapidly, and relieves you rapidly. Whereas Reduvo will be more of a gradual progression. But keep in mind, it's changing your perception of pain. So Reduvo might not be successful in breakthrough pain, which is the most serious one. But in a regular, say, cancer pain, it'll probably help, because it's going to change, again, how the patient perceives the pain, which means you can give less opioids. And that, for a physician, is very important.
What about in terms of pain, just general pain for, I don't know, people, whatever issue that they have, I don't know, maybe they have some surgery or whatever it is. I mean, would they be able to get off-label use for Reduvo?
Oh yeah, I mean, once it's approved, the physician can prescribe it off-label easily. Okay. And if you're a physician and your patient tells you, well, I'm going to go use medical cannabis, and of a Reduvo, well, you're going to want your patient to be on something that has a recognized quality and recognized safety. So you're going to give them the prescription, for Reduvo, because you want to take cannabis. Fine, here's a pharma version of it, and that's what's going to happen in practice. Physicians are going to hear our science, because remember, our strategy. Plenitude is the name of a trial. The results will be attached to Plenitude in the literature, and Reborn, speed of relief, will be linked marketing-wise to Reborn. So physicians will remember that, and that's part of the strategy. So like you're saying, Reduvo allows us to get out there, build the groundwork, but once we have that groundwork with Reduvo, once QuickSleep starts to hit, Plenitude results start to hit, we're just educating physicians by the normal means of the medical literature.
Okay, so basically, Reduvo can really, in a way, it could start going, up against, opioids, pretty much from the get go. I mean, once you're on them, for many cases, I mean, people have pain issues, whatever it is, they're using opioids now. They could use Reduvo for a lot of that.
Correct. Certainly want to try it, just like you'll try. People have tried various drugs on a patient, and many times here in Quebec, there's probably at least 50% of our prescriptions are off-label. So a physician tries the best thing they can to help a patient and not do harm. So for sure, if you don't have experience as a physician, eventually you'll hear some of your colleagues tried Reduvo, or tried medical cannabis and it helped the patient, then you'll be less hesitant. Okay, let me try Reduvo. Normally, they say it takes about 2 or 3 times for a physician to try something and then begin to prescribe it in practice, because now they've seen 2 or 3 patients with positive outcome. And if you look at the pharmas, how they do their, why they give samples to physicians for free, that's what they're doing. Here's a free sample, give it to your patient. It takes a couple of months, patient comes back, physician sees, oh, it worked, tries another one. Oh, it worked, and eventually, here's the prescription pad coming out. That's how the system works.
Right. So it takes a while to get that market traction.
You have to build.
Okay, so it's interesting. So really, I think that the valuation of Tetra should. I think we should definitely start seeing some kind of movement as you're getting closer to the Reduvo commercialization. So the next 3-4 months, again, the initial market is only 80 million, but the off-label use could be, I don't know, $1 billion. I mean,
it's the off-label can be that, but we have what we call the PP02, which is the Reduvo Adversa, which is our second version, which is a sustained release version of Reduvo. So basically, it's going to have less side effects. So we know when we come up with that one's going to be global. We're going after basically the whole world in terms of a market. That's going to be a game changer too, because we're getting out there. We'll have Reduvo first to market in Canada. You can come up in 2 years, with your own version if you want to copy us. That's fine. But I'm going to be ready and hit you with something that's going to be safer. And obviously, price-wise, we'll be competing. But this is the game. So for us, we've positioned ourselves to have a series of drugs that will hit. People always ask, don't you guys have too many drugs on the table? And I said, no, you have to look at the strategy. A pharma doesn't want to buy a single molecule type of thing. What's a strategy to fight pain? What's a strategy to keep and stay as the leader in this field? So we have Reduvo, followed by Reduvo Adversa. In parallel, QuickSleep, fast relief. And that's key. Nothing stops you from even doing both together. So you're going to see totally the pipeline where we're going. So as a pharma, we've positioned ourselves to be an attractive, kind of pipeline even for a pain pharma, because we have the solution. Fast relief for severe acute pain, and using Reduvo, even Adversa, slow sustained release for people that can't even swallow. So multiple positionings of our drug. And we only work on Reduvo Adversa because we're too small, but we've advanced it to a point where the day we want to trigger it and bring it to the market, we can.
Okay, so essentially, it's a full suite targeting the pain market.
Yes, all protected with intellectual property, which was key.
Okay.
You have to build, like you're saying, build the foundation to sell, build the foundation to develop, build the foundation to ensure your investors are protected. Because if I have patents and I'm protected, sure, you can go out as another company and do something, but you'll get this nice lawsuit and you'll have to pay me royalties. Go ahead if you want. My shareholders will certainly love to see a nice royalty check coming in.
Right. No, it'll be very compelling. Let's talk about the other products.
The $1 billion market.
What's that?
I said the other $1 billion market.
The other multi-billion, yeah, because again, it's interesting. You're going after what, 4 multi-billion-dollar opportunities. Actually, technically, it's more, but really
more. But as a small company, yeah.
Yeah, so it's incredible that the stock is where it is right now, because look, we've had companies very similar, maybe slightly more advanced where they were, and actually no, it could be a very interesting pathway. Look, one of the companies we had that we introduced to investors about 18 months ago was Cytodyne, and that stock went from 50 cents to $10 in about 18 months. Not really that much different. The pipeline was not that much different. They were kind of getting closer to commercialization and all that, So that became, I think, a $2 billion market cap at the peak. So I could kind of see the same type of 20x happening here between now and that next 12 to 18 months. It could be there's kind of a path for the stock to be that 20 bagger, not even 10, but really a 20x. Okay, so let's and that kind of ties into the ARDS sepsis.
Yeah, so the ARDS to me was pretty impressive I'll go back to the beginning with our relationship with George Mason University and Target Pharmaceuticals. And, a lot of shareholders were like questioning, why on earth would you do this relationship with this, unknown biotech and, American university? For us, I've been developing drugs my whole career since 1995. And, developing a drug is a lot more than just looking at the first indication. I want to sell it to GSK. I want to sell it to Merck. I want to sell it to Pfizer. But they don't just want to buy it for a small $2 billion market. They want it for a much bigger market. But if I want to protect that market, I have to lay patents down. I have to be sure I patent the use in multiple indications. And the patent examiner is not going to say, oh, yes, Tetra, you can patent it for all diseases. It doesn't work that way. You need data to defend your patents. So we went out and we developed a relationship with George Mason, and they had the BL3 labs. Well, here in Canada, I can't go and infect animals like I want. It doesn't work that way. We don't have that facility. They had, so that was interesting. We knew for SARS-CoV we had to to get in there. One is to learn more about your drug. How does your drug work? And then we expanded our research scope. We did a news release on that, and people are like, why on earth are they looking at other viruses? Well, maybe if I'm looking at other viruses, because I had the suspicion that my anti-inflammatory was also antiviral. And George Mason University, when they did their news release a couple of weeks ago, that's basically what they came out and said. They basically proved in their labs, infecting with other viruses, that the ARDS drug is not just an immunomodulator. It actually stops viral replication. Now that is major. But if you look at their news release and their actual comment, and I think you had one of our shareholders actually come on your show and comment about that news release, if I'm not mistaken. But if you go back and you look at what they actually said, when it was used in combination with antiviral drugs, the outcome was even more significant. Now, if I was a big pharma, I would want to know what that meant in more detail. But basically what it means, if I combine, say, antiviral A that's on the market, maybe close to expiring on its patent. Well,
so it'd be like a cocktail.
Like a cocktail, put both drugs together, you're getting an exponential result that it's even more efficacious. That is significant to any big pharma company out there. That's not minor. And that's the sort of data I need. I can't go knock on GSK or Merck's door and say, hi, I got this, immunomodulator drug that we think is going to work in viral diseases. The more I can show them how it works, the more they're going to be interested in sitting down and listening. Then they're going to say, okay, what's your IP? What's your intellectual property? And that's what, we try and do with them. But what I found amazing, and to me, when I saw the results from George Mason, what impressed me, I spent my career in pharma, and my PhD is in clinical toxicology. Basically, I did it in animals. And early in my career, I worked in drug safety. And we'd hear all the animal groups really criticizing why you guys need animals, why you do this to animals. George Mason created, I call them mini brains, these neurospheres. Really impressive technology. I think they're the first in the world to do that. And they're now testing viruses and bacteria on I call them mini brains, because they get infected like an animal. So they don't need to use live animals. They can do this in vivo inside a lab. We call it ex vivo with these tissues, and do drug development, drug screening, test new drugs, test combinations. From an ethics point of view for society globally, I think what George Mason University and I think their NIH counterparts did is fantastic from a drug discovery and drug development point of view. And to me, that news was really, really under publicized, because it's major advancement.
How big is the market for antivirals?
Oh, you're talking about it again. I mean, if you look, that includes COVID, that includes AIDS, that includes influenza, name the viruses. Many, many, many out there, and many from eye infections, ear infections. I mean, it's probably over $100 billion. It's a major market. And the problem, I remember when I worked in pharma, we worked with monkeys, and you could get one of the B simplex viruses, herpes, and there's no antiviral treatment for it. And the drug they would prescribe to anybody who got scratched or bitten by a monkey was aciclovir, even though they knew that there was no efficacy. So they would still try it because there was nothing else that worked. Now, maybe acyclovir would have worked in combination with ARDS against the virus. So this is what it's opening this door. Doesn't mean Tetra is going to go into clinical trials in antivirals. But for me, if I come to a physician now, you have a choice between 3 drugs for COVID. Say the 4th wave hits. Who are you going to take? One that's purely an anti-inflammatory, or one that when you're going to combine it with remdesivir, maybe the outcome in the patients is going to be much better because of the combined effect. That's key. And, you know, I have people that call me, you know, shareholders, potential investors, and they say, why are you taking your time? And I tell them, look, when you develop a drug, you have to develop it right. When you go too fast, it's like driving a car at full speed at 200 miles an hour. What happens when you turn a corner? If you go too fast, you can hit a wall. I think some of the trials, some of the drugs in COVID failed because they went too fast, didn't have the right endpoints, didn't understand how the drug worked. Well, the day Tetra puts $1 on a COVID trial is because we're sure we're going to win. I don't like getting into trials that I don't know if I'm going to win. If you look at our history, we started Reborn after we knew we'd win. We did the pharmacodynamics. We knew we were fast. We knew we changed perception of pain. Now it's proving it. Well, COVID trials is going to be the same thing. Tetra will invest $1 the day it knows it's going to win. And that to me is key. And I learned every time one of those companies has failed, we've read the trials. We've read their endpoints. Because you only fail if you miss your primary endpoint. You can have 100 secondary endpoints, meet all of them, and your trial still fails if you miss your primary endpoint. The game in clinical development is on your primary endpoint. You miss it, you lose. Game over with the regulator and game over with the prescriber. In actual fact, all the prescriber is going to remember is you failed the primary endpoint. So I don't want that. And the more I can sell my drug, and the other aspect we've been working at, obviously I have to position it. Okay, business-wise. Dexamethasone is cheap. Dexamethasone is about the only anti-inflammatory that has made some, how could I say, success in treating COVID patients. So basically, why would you want to give a more expensive prescribed drug than something that's cheap, generic? So I have to show those arguments, not for a trial, but for a market potential, again, to excite a pharma. Well, dexamethasone is immunosuppressive. We've perfectly shown the world we're not immunosuppressive. And the proof of that is when FDA and Health Canada revised their protocols, they said you can go to an adaptive. You know, we revealed to the market, well, we're giving it in combination with dexamethasone. So that is a signal that I've been able to convince the regulator I'm not immunosuppressive. So there's one, you know, check mark. Tetra is not immunosuppressive, so I can give it longer. I can give it earlier to prevent ARDS in the COVID patients or influenza patients. And now I'm antiviral. So maybe if I give it ARDS 003 even earlier to a COVID patient, not only am I safe from an immunosuppression point of view, I also may kill the virus along, say, with remdesivir. So, you know, I mean, certainly going forward as we develop a drug, it's complex, but this is what we do. And to us, it's very exciting to see this news. And, you know, by the way, I didn't do the study. It's done by GMU, an independent body. So to me, it has a lot more value coming out from GMU than from Tetra.
Okay, Guy, we're running a little bit late, so we're gonna wrap up here. In terms of news flow, other trial data, what else is in the pipeline? What other catalysts are there for investors to keep an eye on for the next, you know, before September? So the next 4 to 6 weeks. This is, you know, a lot of people think this is going to be a very slow, sleepy summer, but I think there's a lot of exciting things.
Take your cell phone on vacation. Keep track of Tetra. We never go sleep. I mean, if you look at the Christmas vacation, many times you have surprises between Christmas and New Year's. I'm not the type of guy who doesn't like surprising people. So we're by the book. We don't disclose things ahead of time. But on the 3 fronts, Plenitude, Reborn, Reduvo, any of those could have a news release anytime in the future. And we have other things that we work on, you know, business-wise. People forget about our PanAg unit and their activities with the, you know, CB2 Therapeutics, a major company in the States that we have as a partner, Thorn Research, in New York. Many stuff. People have been pushing us as well, in the social media to apply for grants to the NFL, a whole bunch of stuff. So, we listen, we watch what our shareholders say, and, if it is an interesting opportunity, we go for it.
Okay. Bottom line is that there is, you get this massive market opportunity, multiple, 50 billion, $100 billion market opportunities that you're addressing. You're getting close to, that commercialization phase, 18 months, 24 months out, whatever it is. So the valuation gap should be increasing between, where the stock is now and, potentially 2 billion or more as we get, towards that, that threshold. So that, and as things get more and more de-risked, we should see the value increase. You got multiple catalysts potentially coming up now, you're saying. Does it maybe, I don't know if it's a hint or not, but between now and Labor Day in the US, people should basically keep an eye on Tetra.
I think you always have to keep an eye on Tetra, because Tetra is making a lot of, progress on intellectual property. We had the interstitial cystitis patent. That's the only one out there be granted. So, that's ours. That's our market. We had our prebiotic that, is in Thorne's hands. We have 2 patents now on the prebiotic use of cannabis raw materials in there. So, there's a lot there. So as a company, it's not our prime activity. It's part of one of our subsidiaries, but, business-wise, we're moving on those. People never read the MD&A, and I don't blame them. It's not an easy read, but I always tell shareholders, when you want to know something about Tetra, go to the MD&A, do a word search, whatever. But you'll see we update it every quarter. There are things in there that obviously get updated that people don't realize. And then we have our ophthalmics. People always forget our ophthalmics, because when I work on my
ARDS,
we didn't
even talk about that.
Yeah, guess what? It's the same molecule. So I have an antiviral now. I may have eye drops that have a benefit even with an antiviral. Again, making my drug interesting from an anti-inflammatory point of view. If I have, let's say, an additive effect with an antiviral, I'll have the same thing in the eye. And so if you're going to give dexamethasone in the eye, why not give ARDS? Because it's both anti-inflammatory, non-immunosuppressive, and now, the GMU showed our antiviral properties. So it becomes a very interesting drug candidate. And to me, I'm happy, because each time I see my market size growing.
Okay. Guy, on that note, we're gonna have to wrap up. I think we should catch up in about 2 weeks, and we'll go through all the stuff, the ARDS pipeline, everything, all the trials, all that data. Guy, thank you again. Congratulations on what apparently looks like some pretty significant progress. And we'll see you in about 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Enjoy the summer.
Thank you.